we went live, and we were talking about this fix. You know, I have a teen, I didn't do it the way that I should have, or you know, I'm butting my head. I'm against a wall with a teen, and you're suggesting that with this program you have seen change. So it means that it's not too late.
No.
It's never too late.
And I'm glad you said that, because I want to remind our viewers that if we don't believe in our young people, nobody else will. They don't have anybody else to believe in them. And if you even think about your own situation, or maybe a teen that you've seen bend a corner, most of the time it's because one adult stepped up to the plate and believed in that.
Agreed.
Right? And said, look, doesn't matter where you've been or where you think you're going, I'm willing to work with you from here to make sure that you achieve your goals in life.
Agreed.
When we do this program, the first session that we do with teens is goal setting. We ask them, what do you want when you're 21, when you're 25? Where do you see yourself? And it's amazing.
I'm interested to hear how that session goes, because I do that with 5-year-olds, and I know they've already stopped dreaming.
Correct. And what blows my mind every time is that they're like, you know, I haven't thought about that in a while, and I'm not sure. And then we get them to think about it, go back and think about it, and think about where you want to be at 21 or 25. I think one of the saddest answers I heard was not from a group here, but from an at-risk teen in New York, where this program was developed and blossomed. And he said, I just want to be alive.
Wow.
Because he was
imagine that's a goal.
Yes,
your goal is just to be alive at 21.
Yes, and because he said no other male relative in his immediate family had lived past 21.
Wow.
And when you see what's taking place across the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, it's bothering me that a lot of our teens, and especially our male teens, are falling. 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 21, come on. The brain is not even fully developed until 25. So it means between 0 to 25, we're losing too many of our children.
Yeah.
Right? And young people. And
so step one is goal setting.
Yeah, we get them to think about where do you want to be. When they do think about it, it comes down to couple main things, believe it or not. One, to finish their education.
Okay.
Right? 2, they talk about marriage and long-term relationships. 3, they talk about having a home. They talk about a stable job. They talk about being healthy. And believe it or not, all of those goals are easily compromised, easily lost, easily unachievable, becomes unachievable if we do not preserve our young people between the ages of 9 to 25.
When you say they're easily lost, so explain that a little bit to me.
So let's look at some of the risky behaviors, right? So let's take drugs, alcohol, okay? Because of how the teenage brain develops and the fact that it isn't fully developed until 25, addictions can happen very easily and very quickly in those adolescent years.
Okay.
Because let's say you take a drink of alcohol, it triggers a chemical reaction in the brain.
Okay.
Pleasure chemicals get released, and it sets a pathway, right? It sets an entrenched pathway in the brain that this is good, this feels good, and I want to do it over and over again. That's how addictions develop.
Right.
The research shows that if you take your first drink at maybe 21, 22, you're way less likely to become addicted than if you take your first drink as a teenager.
But what happens if we just taste it?
You see, teenagers don't have that restraint.
Okay. So,
you know, if a teen is in a setting where...
I have a good one. Because my father, and none of us drink.
Right.
And I think it was him, but for whatever reason, there's, that alcohol just is not one of our things.
Right.
We have something good.
Just not that one.
And he said, and I've heard this story all the time, you make the person get like completely drunk, have a really bad experience with alcohol.
So that they won't do it again.
So that you won't do it again.
Yeah, but that's sort of a superstitious approach to doing it.
Okay.
Because it shows a total lack of understanding for how the brain works.
Okay.
And in the last 10 years, neuroscience has advanced so much to the point where, I mean, they've imaged the brain. They know exactly what is working when different things are happening, which part of the brain is lighting up and which part. It's amazing what they've been able to find out.
Right.
And there may be some children, now I'm not saying that that may not have worked for one or two, maybe, right? But that individual may just have had predispositions that didn't allow them to do it again.
Right.
But the fact is, it's like playing Russian roulette at the end of the day. You're gambling with what the brain is going to do.
Yes.
Because on the other hand, the brain might say, oh my God, this is great. Let's do it again, like a roller coaster. Some people go on a roller coaster and say, well, not me again.
Okay.
But then there are those, because of the thrill and because of the dopamine rush and because of that feel-good feeling that they want to have again and again and again, they keep doing it.
Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, so I have a question. We're going to pay bills. After we pay bills, I'm going to ask the question. Don't go anywhere. Today we're talking all about risk avoidance, and we're on to alcohol. I mean, in Trinidad, I know that's a bit of an issue, and apparently that whole, give your child lots of alcohol to drink and hope that the experience is so bad they never do it again.
No, please don't do that.
Apparently Rebecca has a better way. Rebecca has a better way, and we're going to hear it when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching Care. Hi, and welcome back to Care. We're talking risk avoidance today. We're joined by Rebecca. Rebecca is the founder of the Alpa Center, and the Alpa Center are, dealing with families, pregnancy. She does a lot of work with at-risk. And on your screen, you're going to see the Healthy Respect Camp, and that's what we're talking about right now. And this is a 12-week program.
Well, in all, it's 24 lessons.
24 lessons.
But if we do 2 per...
Wowzers, 24 lessons for $250.
Yeah.
I could come?
It's heavily subsidized. I could come?
I want to come.
And frankly, if I could do it for free, I do. As a matter of fact, there is at least one camp that we did for free to the kids, but we got people to support the books, right? Okay. That cost is really just for the material.
I can imagine.
It's
24 classes.
Yeah.
God bless people like Rebecca.
Sometimes I wonder if I should up the price because people probably think they're not getting good value, but this is a sound evidence.
We had that conversation already. Sometimes when people see that it's cheap, they somehow think that it's not a good program. When really and truly what we're doing is we're offering it at a reasonable cost so that we can reach the at-risk communities. We can make it, attainable by everyone.
That's the whole point, because if we want to change behavior on a bigger scale, then it has to reach more and more people, teens, right?
Yes. So when we left off, Rebecca told us that my idea about making the kid all like really, really drunk and have a horrible experience with alcohol is not the best way.
No, it's not.
Rebecca wants us to wait till the kid is 21.
No. Well, frankly, they can avoid it ad infinitum.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Fine. But you're saying...
But the thing is, the risk is, for adolescents, is the younger they are, when they begin using it, the greater the risk. The more they are at risk for an addiction.
Right. So you are suggesting that they should taste it somewhere around the age 20, 21.
Wait till after 21 when the brain is...
But we live in Trinidad. I mean, I'm seeing my camera guy. Maybe we should bring the camera guy in front and ask him. Well, if you speak loud enough, would my audience hear me? Are you willing to answer me? Okay. What age did you start tasting alcohol? He started tasting alcohol at 15. Would you suggest that all your friends started tasting it around that age as well? Because what age? I mean, we have carnival.
And...
we ain't doing carnival without alcohol.
In any event, legal, I mean, you're drinking illegally at 15.
Okay, but it's a real show.
You're not even supposed to access tobacco and alcohol until you're 18. And there is a reason.
But they have it in their home and their parents give it to them. But we should do a survey. That is what you should do, a survey on the age children start in Trinidad.
The thing is, even if we did a survey, it doesn't make it right.
Okay, fine.
Even if 100% of the people say they're doing it, it's not.
Because in your seminar, and I'm guessing that that's probably why we should come, because
but I mean, alcohol is one strand.
I mean, when you're 15 and everyone's tasting it, how in a society as where alcohol is such a commonplace, how do we say, you know,
right.
try
So
not
this
to
is
taste
where
it till
this,
you're like
so
20
this is
and
where
21.
this is where the curriculum comes in, right? Because in the curriculum, when it was developed, multiple theories were drawn on to build this curriculum, right? One of them being the theory of planned behavior. In other words, you need to be intentional. As adolescents, we need to teach them to be intentional
Okay.
about their behavior,
Okay.
right? Providing them with the facts and information on drugs, on alcohol, on tobacco, on sex outside of marriage, multiple partners, abuse, violence, peer pressure, the media. When we provide them with the facts about these things and how they intertwine, because you see, it's rarely ever sex alone now. There's drugs, there's alcohol, and there's violence, right? When we give them the facts about these things, what we are doing is we are equipping them, we are empowering them to be intentional about their behavior, right?
Okay.
Because remember, at the end of the day, we're drawing a line between where you are and where you want to be.
Okay.
If you become drunk, which impairs your judgment, and you jump behind the wheel of a car and you crash it and die, all your goals go out the window, right? If you have sex before marriage and you have multiple partners, the pattern with teens is that they may not have multiple boyfriends or girlfriends at the same time, but they switch quickly, right? Which has the same net effect as multiple partners.
Okay.
And if you go to the CDC website, you'll see that that is one of the riskiest things you can do, and it opens them up to STDs. I'll just stick this statistic
Okay, but we're
in.
using condoms.
But you see, that is not 100% foolproof. Again, if you go to the CDC website, it says on their website, which is not a conservative website, it says the best way to ensure that you do not contract an STI is to not have sex, right?
Camera guy, are you seeing my facial expression when she's telling me these things?
In the age group of 50, no, we could laugh.
Is this realistic?
We could laugh about this,
but
but
it's not about
let me just give you the statistic,
okay,
right?
Give me the statistic.
Between the ages of 15 to 24, that age group are contracting 50% of all new STDs in the United States. Do you understand? Between 15 to 24, that age group is contracting 50% of all new cases of STDs in the States. It's about 1 in 4 young person in the States has an STD now.
Right.
At least one. Some of them have more than one. And when Dr. Capola, who's our consultant on this program, looked at the statistics for Trinidad, the data that we were able to mine for Trinidad and Tobago shows a very similar trend.
But do young people care about the STDs?
They don't know.
So that's what I'm asking.
So they don't know what their risk is.
Because I feel like you're giving me stuff that seems to be a little bit unrealistic. You want me to tell my teenager to not taste alcohol until she's 20, to not have, to be...
Now, you have a child, right? So make sure you contextualize what you're saying.
But I'm trying to speak on behalf of everyone that's watching. And, because, I'd be a hypocrite. The truth is, I didn't drink alcohol, right? This is why I guess I always say that confidence has worked for me. I played a sport where, alcohol is commonplace. I don't even think that people get drunk in our sport. They drink it and it's like water,
right?
And it's so funny because I go out and people would say, "You Trini?" or "You playing this?" because you play a sport, the liming is a big thing. You're from Trinidad.
Right.
I've played carnival several times. I used to fet Monday to Sunday, if you give me a chance. And I don't drink alcohol.
Right.
So I do know that it's possible. But I also know that even at my age, if I go to dinner with someone and they offer me alcohol, they offer me a glass of wine or whatever, and I say, "No, it's okay, I'm having coconut water or orange juice," bartenders watch me like I'm crazy.
And you just watch them back with a smile because they're just
crazy.
making more money. But if you are able to do it,
it means that everyone can.
If you are able to do it and you see the value in doing it, why wouldn't you want that for somebody else? You
It's
see,
not
why
that I don't want it. I just want us to be realistic.
Right, but the thing is, adolescents need to be guided. I remember there was one neuroscientist who said,
do you think parents see the value of what you are teaching?
well, let me just say this, right? One neuroscientist said to parents in one of his presentations, because your teen brain is the way it is, and because it is very impulsive and still very emotional and undeveloped, and they can't grasp abstract concepts yet. But at the same time, it's a brain that's highly addictive, highly prone to addiction. Parents need to be their children's prefrontal cortex. That is this part of the brain which is responsible for judgment and reasoning and logic and decision making. In other words, what he's saying is you need to be more on top of your adolescent than you would, or I shouldn't say than you would a smaller child, but than you probably ever thought that you needed to be.
I'm seeing two challenges with that. One being, if the parent doesn't even see a problem with multiple partners or a problem with high levels of alcohol consumption. So that's one thing, because now you have to get the parents buying in to what they're teaching.
Well, this is where the education and awareness comes in. And this is where educating the teens is extremely important with parental involvement. Because over and over we've had the teenagers say to us, as a matter of fact, not one teenager who's been through our program said that they were disadvantaged by the information they received.
Oh no,
as a matter of fact,
they
felt more equipped and more empowered to make good decisions for themselves, right? Because even if their parent, and this is just in the minority, most parents want their children to succeed.
So that's my second challenge. Because what you're saying to me is that the parents need to be that voice of reason. They need to, be the eye of judgment and that sort of thing. And I find that as a teenager, that almost comes across as judging me, as always thinking that something's wrong with me. So now you're looking at another thing that the parent has to come and be this bad wolf all the time.
No. That is a perception. Parents, the foundation of it is relationship, okay?
So are you dealing with, in the seminar, relationships? Are you dealing with that?
Well, there is, built into the curriculum is about 6 parent workshops.
So parents do come to the workshops as well?
We do have a maximum of 6 workshops. We would liaise with the parents and see which ones apply the most. So we do a communication workshop. We would do a workshop on how to talk to your child about human growth and development, puberty, their menstrual cycle, etc., right? Because in as much as we are providing them with the facts and the information over an extended period, which means we get a chance to build relationship with them as well, we want the parent to be involved in the process. They need to be involved in the process. Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, this is my position at Output Center. I'm not so concerned about where people are at or where they think they have fallen short. What I'm more concerned about is equipping, empowering, and educating parents and teens to get to where they need to be on the road that they need to be for healthy living, right?
Agreed.
Because, there are times I would be driving down and you see an addict on the side of the road, and I say to myself, he was once in someone's womb, he was once a baby, he was once a toddler, he was once a child, he was once a teen. What happened along that continuum of human growth and development that caused them to be here? Right?
How about you answer that question?
Well,
what could possibly have happened?
It could be multiple things. There may be mental health issues. There may be neglect, abandonment, rejection, like physically homelessness, right? Somewhere along the line, he or she started experimenting, and this is why we should not be flippant about experimenting, because experimenting opens the door to increased usage, long-term usage, addiction, and then falling through the cracks like some of these. And once you become addicted, I was speaking to one man, he's in his 50s now, almost 60 now, and he works with teens. He himself is a recovering addict, and he said to me, Rebecca, there is no such thing as a recovered addict. You are never recovered. You are always recovering.
Right.
Always, right? So is that what we want for our adolescents? Do we want to put them in a situation where they develop these unhealthy behaviors and addictions and fall prey to very destructive patterns of behavior, right? When we do our curriculum with the teens, we share with them real life stories. There's a story, for instance, we share of a young man, a man who actually he passed away not too long after doing the video for this program from HIV. And he spoke about how, as a young man, he had all these dreams, and by the time he was 21, he had had 4 children and was using drugs to the point where he was totally hooked. And then that led to risky behaviors, which led to him contracting HIV and down a path of destruction. And coming down to the end of his life, he was able to pull some of himself together. But he said on his video, once he goes out with a woman, by the second date, he has to tell her, I have HIV. I am HIV positive. And then deal with the repercussions of that. She may reject him most of the time. These are the realities, you know, that sadly when you drive down the highways and the byways, you don't see that on the billboards, you know. You don't see on the billboard posted a man or woman who's been destroyed by prostitution, drug addiction, trafficking, pornography addiction, HIV, AIDS, or any of the other STDs that are going around, right? You don't see that. You see the glamour of people having fun and liming and knocking a glass, and that's what you see because that's what the media does. That's what marketing does. What our program does is to tell them, look, these are the facts. Even juvenile delinquency, there are some charts that we show them on juvenile delinquency, which shows that when we collect the data in the US in particular, and I'm sure it's the same for here because I've spoken to people here who say it's the same. The juveniles who end up in detention or end up being arrested for even petty crimes, when they look into it, they've been using alcohol, tobacco, or marijuana, right? Yeah. So these things are what we call gateway drug. Alcohol is a gateway drug, marijuana is a gateway drug, tobacco is a gateway drug. What that means is, in and of itself, it may seem to be innocuous, or, you know, kind of harmless, it's no big deal, take a little sip, or take a little puff, or take a little pull, yeah, right? It's just herbs, but it's a gateway that then opens that teen into using the harder drugs, right?
How do you deal with the it can't happen to me attitude?
Right.
Because, as you say, you know, the media is portraying everyone as that lifestyle as a glamorous lifestyle.
Right.
You know, in fact, we see, again, social media makes media even closer to you, you know. Yeah. So how do you deal with wanting to dress up, wanting to be on Facebook with a drink in your hand, you know? How do you deal with, well, it can't happen to me, you know, I'm just going to be the glamorous side of things.
Well, there are multiple things, right? By the time they go through those 24 lessons, I think they have enough information which shows them that they are not invincible. Because in every lesson we incorporate stories. So in each of the session we tackle, let's say we're talking about an STI. We have real life stories of teens and their parents talking about how they never thought this could happen to me. And they put their story in there. When we deal with teen pregnancy, for instance, we have a video that we show them of about 6 or 8 teen girls who tell their story. I wanted to be loved, I wanted to be held, I wanted to belong to someone, but it happened so quickly, it was done in 2 minutes, and then here I am with this baby to raise all by myself. And I can't go out and lime, and I can't go back to school, and I now have to find a job. And so we use different mediums to bring it home to them that these people also thought it would never happen to them. Right?
Wow.
But the thing is, what we link for these teenagers is choice, behavior, and consequence.
Choice, behavior, and consequence.
Right? They're linked. You can't walk on the edge of a cliff and not realize that there is a risk that you've just entered into, that you could fall and die, right? As opposed to walking in the middle of a wide open field, you've just almost eliminated the risk that you're going to fall over an edge and die. It's the same thing with behaviors. if you choose risky behaviors and if you choose them continuously and if you choose them on an ongoing basis and you go deeper and deeper into more and more risky behaviors, the outcomes are inevitable. What's going to happen, you know?
I'm still not convinced about the curiosity and curbing the curiosity part. I mean, as human beings, we are curious, you know, I mean,
right.
That's the whole thing. How are you? And to me, the more that you say to me, don't do it, the more that I'm gonna want to do it. You know,
clearly you needed to do a program when you were a teenager.
Well, that's why I tell you I want to come to the program.
Because one of the theories that underlines a curriculum is a theory by Benson called developmental assets theory.
Okay.
Okay. What this does, it has identified the person who did put together that theory, identified 40 different developmental assets that are essential for healthy development. Okay? And these building blocks, he's divided them into assets of support, assets of empowerment, assets of boundaries and expectations, assets of constructively using your time, and internal assets of making a commitment to learning, positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. So these 40 assets under these categories have been woven into the entire curriculum. This curriculum was not done, you know, off the cuff. Let's just talk about reproductive system and draw a uterus. Let's just talk about the penis and draw it. Woven into the entire thing is a lot of intentionality about how it's taught, what the outcomes are going to be, and what we want the teens to live with. Once these developmental assets are built into them over the curriculum period and then thereafter, they are less likely to choose risky behaviors. Let's give our teens some credit.
Right.
We are not giving them credit. And as a matter of fact, there was one survey that was done.
I want you to hold that thought. We're going to pay bills.
Yes.
So you have to pay bills so that we can continue to have people like you on the show. We're going to hear that survey when we come back.
No problem.
Guys, don't go anywhere. We're talking about risk avoidance. Rebecca is so full of information. Go get a drink quickly. We're going to be right back. Risk avoidance.
Non-alcoholic one.
A non-alcoholic one, of course. Hi, welcome back to K. Today it's all about risk avoidance. Risk avoidance is a little bit different to risk reduction. And when we left off, Rebecca was about to tell us about a survey that actually spoke about teenagers preferring risk avoidance to risk reduction. Tell us a little bit about the differences and why teenagers prefer risk avoidance.
Right. So now we've been talking about risky behaviors, right? Alcohol, drugs, violence, peer pressure, and sex. It's really all tied together, right? Which is why we deal with the entire spectrum. It's not wise to distill them and leave out any of those, because more and more they're finding that youth sexual activity is tied into all of it, right? It all plays a role. But they had surveyed some teenagers who used both a risk avoidance program and a risk reduction program, like what might be called popularly known as comprehensive sex ed. And the teens themselves
Could you give me an example of what I would learn if I'm doing risk reduction?
Right, risk reduction would tell you something like, well, yes, not having sex is the best way to avoid an STD, but if you can't control yourself, condomize. Okay.
As opposed to what would risk avoidance?
Risk avoidance tells you the fact is that if you want to avoid contracting an STD, do not have sex until there is a specific time, because this is the other thing, teenagers cannot grasp abstract concepts. So like if you tell a teen when you're ready,
right,
you could only do it when you're ready.
Yes, that's not specific.
What does that mean? That's abstract. A teenage brain cannot process that.
Well, if no child can, you know what? No one can process abstract. I get very upset when someone says, you're always this and you're always that. I'm like, wait, hold up. Do you know what always means? That's a bit vague. Let's be specific.
Because saying when you're ready could mean a million different things, a million combination of different things. It doesn't, right? If you use marriage as a timeline, then because marriage speaks to permanency, it speaks to commitment, it speaks to monogamy, it speaks to a specific financial, social, and economic context in which this is going to happen. Right?
Versus our parents just saying, just wait till you're married now, but you ain't really giving me any
correct, and even that is inadequate information.
That's what I'm saying, because I like the detail that you're saying to me.
Yeah.
Why am I waiting till I'm married?
Right.
Because society tell me I should wait because it's going to be embarrassing to you, or because if we're a Christian, that's what we should do.
Right, and if you do that, you're going to turn off your teens, and frankly, that has nothing to do with it. What it is working with the brain. The brain can understand concrete concepts such as marriage. And what they've found is that when they've taught the risk avoidance, even if the teenagers did not wait quite until marriage, they waited much longer. Which is very important, Marsha, because again, now we're using 21, right? And we use it for alcohol, but it's the same thing for all the other behaviors. If you wait until after then, the likelihood of even contracting an STI goes down. Than if you start.
Just play the timeline game alone, you know.
Not only that, but a female's biological makeup, the adolescent girl's body is more susceptible to contracting STIs. Nobody tells our young girls that. Nobody tells them that there are developmental things still taking place during that adolescent period that needs to be completed in order to increase your resistance to contracting an STI.
Okay.
Right? So one of the things we do not, we don't play around with our teenagers in delivering the curriculum. It is age appropriate. So what we teach a 9-year-old would be very different to what we teach a 16-year-old. But what they get is age-appropriate facts and information. They get the truth, and then they get the developmental assets. We even teach them refusal skills. So we have an acronym that we use called NICE, which is no, change the subject, exit, or try to influence, right? Otherwise. We even teach refusal skills because we can't assume, and we should not assume, that our teenagers know how to refuse.
How to say no.
Right. So, even the scenario
my daughter is 6 years old, and that is something that we've had to go through because her list of watching shows is like yay high.
Right.
And if she goes on a play date, the reality is that, Mom, it can be embarrassing that I have this long list of rules.
Right.
I understand why I have this long list of rules.
Right.
But when I go over by my friend, I don't want to have to say, well, my mommy doesn't allow me.
Right. So what I do is I give the rules to the parent.
Well, that works. That
or
works.
the teacher.
Yes.
I say to adults all the time, let us stop putting our children and our teens on the spot and embarrassing them. We are the adults. We need to step up to the plate and be their protector. We need to be that sense of reasoning. We need to take time from our busy schedule and call a parent and say, look, these are the boundaries that I've set for my child. Are those boundaries going to be respected when they come to your house? And if it's not going to be respected,
then she'll come into your house.
Stop cooking. Simple.
But then that becomes easier at 6. When I am 18, and I'm saying this now, I'm only speaking from experience in terms of having that whole alcohol issue.
Right.
Being someone who didn't drink alcohol in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
And I would have to say, because for me, what I say to her, is because I can only hope that I choose the right parents, etc. But there comes a time where the child, puts pressure, and for me, I feel like that's where that confidence in who I am, because I say to her, I say, you say that you don't want to. This has nothing to do with what your mom says, because I appreciate that I don't want to go out there and say, well, my parents don't allow me to have alcohol.
Right.
No, I don't want to have alcohol because I know the risk involved. I know what the consequences of not having alcohol or the consequences of having alcohol would be. And so I have made that choice. And so I kind of give her that, well, I've made that choice because I'm this person and this is what I want for myself. And
of course, again, that's also age appropriate. So, and child, even specific, there might be some children who would be very good at doing that and some that aren't, and you have to know your child and flex accordingly, right? But one of the other things, one of the other theories that is woven into this is self-efficacy and self-esteem.
Right.
When we talk about peer pressure in this curriculum, we talk about the fact that peer pressure can also be positive. Peer pressure doesn't always have to be seen in a negative, right? So let's say you're in a setting and a child is being bullied, right? And it maybe happened, that's another lesson that we've now incorporated on bullying in order to address the current social settings, right?
Yes.
You as a child, you can exert positive peer pressure by getting other people to agree with you that behavior is harmful to another child, and get the more children you get saying that is harmful, you are then creating and expanding positive peer pressure.
So now we're the leaders, not the followers.
Right.
We create our own movement.
Right. And then there's a whole thing about bystander. The bystander issue really is what we have to address with children, which we do in the bullying chapter, because a lot of children, and even as adults actually, bystander thing is a real issue with adults too. You'd be standing there and seeing someone getting hit or being hurt, and most people would not jump in, even in a crowd. Most people would not.
No, they wouldn't.
Jump in,
and
it is a theory,
to a break
okay.
very soon. So, do I have time to have this? Hello. I have time? No time. So we have to go. All right. We're gonna hold that thought, the bystander theory, because I want to discuss that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We're talking risk avoidance. You're watching Care. Don't go anywhere. You know what? Behind the scenes, it's just like, it's really interesting. It's fun. And I keep saying it. Every show I say that we're going to have to keep the reel going and do like, some kind of behind the scenes show after. One day we will do that. We were about to hear about the bystander theory. And I feel like that's a real
show in itself.
That's a show in itself. Because for those who are now joining us, you're kind of late, but just in case, the bystander theory, it's where you see something happening and you don't jump in, you stand up and you just watch. Or in our case, you pull your phone out, you tape it, upload it, and get a set of likes.
Correct.
But you've done nothing really to stop it.
prevent harm. It would probably be a good point for me to say that the motto of the curriculum we use is do no harm to yourself, to others, or your future.
Okay.
So that is the motto that we reinforce in each of the 24 lessons. So all that we teach them is geared towards staying on the path to your goals and doing no harm to yourself, others, or your future, right? When we talk about bullying, we talk about the different types of bullying, we talk about cyberbullying, but one of the things that does come up is this whole thing about bystander, right? In the sense that, and it doesn't just affect children, I mean, it's children, teens, even adults. Like I said, everybody is crippled by inaction.
Agreed.
Most people, I should say, not everybody. A small percent of people would break out of that inaction and do something, but the majority would just look on. And I mean, this doesn't apply to the curriculum we do, but based on research I've done, there are universities that have been churning out research and churning out programs specifically to target bystander inaction, right? In other words, to get, like, even on a college, on colleges and universities, you see someone being hurt, you see a girl being assaulted, you see a boy being assaulted, what do you do?
Yeah, but I mean, Rebecca, that could lead to you losing your own life jumping in.
Well, I mean, you have to make a judgment decision on what you're going to do based on this situation, but not doing anything
is not an option.
Should not be an option, right? But when it comes to bullying, there is an exercise that we would do with them that sort of helps them to take a step, you know. So you're a child and you're watching on and you see something happening to another child and you know it's wrong, you know it's hurting them, it's bothering you. And there's another thing I don't think we understand fully. about bullying, I'm not sure how many parents understand this. It's not just the child that's being bullied that's affected by bullying. It's the child that's inflicting the bullying and the children that are watching the bullying. It's same as abuse. It's not just the victim of the abuse that's going through something. It's also the perpetrator. It's also the onlookers, right? So we have to understand that, and then when, which is why when we teach bullying, we talk about the bystander, because you may not be the perpetrator, you may not be the victim, but you're looking on. What do you do? How do you deal with that? What steps can you take? Can you go to an adult? Can you go to a teacher? Can you go home and talk to a parent? Can you get them to come and do some intervention on your behalf?
I want to ask a question, but I feel like that's going to take me down a whole other topic, because my poor daughter was an onlooker of bullying.
Right.
And being the person that she is, she didn't know about bystanding.
Right.
So, you know, it started with telling, you know, but then you become a telltale.
Right.
Started with, I'm going to jump in and help.
Right.
And if you know, you know Jess is taller,
right.
You know, she's athletic.
Right.
So she can take on a guy if she wants to.
Right.
You know, and then that becomes now where it's a physical issue, and she's still a soft heart. So when that violence comes at her, it's like all I was doing was protecting my friend.
Right.
That became a real emotional challenge for her. You know, and sometimes I kind of go and do that. I wish you just turn around and
no, well,
walk
but
away.
you know, maybe not walk away, but tell someone as opposed to directly jumping into the physical exchanges might be the better thing to do, right? Yeah. For her and probably for most children, because at the same time, remember.
But then you become a telltale. Nobody wants to play with you anyway.
That's okay. I mean, I've told my children this all the time. If you speaking up for someone means that nobody else talks to you, fine. It means that they're not friends you needed to have in the first place, right? Because if we don't begin to teach our children to do no harm to themselves, to others, or their future, what kind of society are we living in? I mean, I'm seeing it every day already. I feel like Trinidad and Tobago has reached, and not just Trinidad and Tobago, but globally, we're teetering on the edge, you know. We're really teetering on the edge, and I don't know that. I mean, all this work that El Center does. You know, sometimes I wonder if it's too little too late. But I'd rather do it than not do it, in the hopes that even if we get to some and not all, that it will make some sort of rippling difference somewhere.
Each one teach one.
Right. It's just like when I went to the conference on sexual exploitation, and what they're looking at is the continuum of exploitation. So from pornography and how it's linked to the demand for prostitution and sex trafficking and the whole, it's a continuum of violence, right? And one of the speakers, Josh McDowell, who is a Christian author, and he actually wrote some books for parents on how to talk to their teenagers about sex, etc. He said we have 4 years. We only have 4 years in which to talk to our teens in the church and men and women in the church about pornography and its effects, so it'll be too late.
Wow. We've less than a minute, probably about a minute.
Yes.
You tell me, what do you want our viewers to know? Other than coming to your workshop, we're gonna put the flyer up on CARE. So please, please, please go on to CARE so that you can see the flyer, so that you can get plugged in. Mm-hmm. But I mean, before getting plugged in, what are some of, if you could pick like top 5 things that parents can know,
right? What
would you say?
One, it's to be your teenager's prefrontal cortex. Okay, just if you want to go online and Google all the brain research yourself, fine, go ahead. But based on the research that I've done and the speakers that I've heard and the information on neuroscience and brain development, take my word for it. Your 13-year-old or 12-year-old that goes off to high school is not all of a sudden supposed to be left on their own. You need to continue to guide that child throughout high school and even probably through their early university years, at least, because the brain is not fully developed till 25. If you go to an insurance underwriter on actuarial science, they will tell you they don't write off risks until after 25. Why is that? Because they know from calculating risk that people under 25 engage in more risky behaviors. The second thing I would tell you as a parent is love your children, build a relationship, and from that position of love and a relationship, teach them how to be their best selves and do no harm to themselves, others, or their future.
Rebecca, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for watching Care. It's been a pleasure. See you next week.